Shannon Bryan didn't hike or paddle or do yoga with goats when she was growing up in the Chicago suburbs. But after she moved to Maine in 2005, she couldn't resist the lure of Maine's woods and waters, not to mention all those funky fitness classes, which sometimes include goats. She spent 10 years at Maine Today Media, now Masthead Maine, as a content producer for MaineToday.com, covering all sorts of entertaining things to do, from bar crawls and brunches to paint nights and burlesque. On weekends, she explored Maine's coast and inland waters, planting her feet on mountain summits, bought a road bike and a mountain bike and a paddleboard, and tried ice climbing and fly fishing and a whitewater canoe race. She loved all of it, even the stuff she was pretty bad at. Fit Maine was born out of that love for Maine's outdoors and for the experiences anyone can have trying something new, getting physical in entertaining ways, and realizing that being fit isn't always about feats at the gym or stamina on the treadmill. It's about being able to do all the cool stuff there is to do around here. FitMaine.com was launched in 2015 as a resource for cool ways to work out and be active in Maine. In 2019, Shannon launched the Fit Maine Social Club, where members could do active stuff together. Welcome to the PR Maven Podcast, a podcast all about growing your network and building your brand through traditional and digital networking techniques. I'm Nancy Marshall, the PR Maven and CEO of Marshall Communications. I've been strengthening brands through PR for over 35 years, and now I'm celebrating the success of executives, influencers, business owners, and entrepreneurs from all around the world, all of whom have cultivated their brands and broadened their networks through traditional and digital networking methods. Each week, I interview one of these interesting and influential individuals and provide an opportunity for you, the PR Maven Nation, to gain insights from their strategies and stories. So stay tuned for this week's episode, and thanks for listening. So Shannon, to kick things off, tell us about your career and how you got into it in the first place.
Sure. Well, like so many people, it was pre-planned to every move.
Oh, of course. Yes, mine
kid,
too.
Of course, because does it ever happen that way? No, I was lucky that, I arrived in Maine in 2005 and very quickly ended up as an online assistant working for MaineToday.com, which at the time was like the entertainment branch of the Portland Press Herald newspaper. And that was an awesome job because, things like social media were just starting to become things, and YouTube was launching. And it was a great experience in learning how to create digital content, right when digital content was still first new to a lot of people. And I started out as an online assistant for a couple of years and then got promoted to a content producer. And so my job day in and day out was learning how to create online content. And that could be anything from a blog post with a fun headline, taking photos and editing them and posting those, and then video, audio, all that good stuff. And then, of course, as social media grew in popularity, learning how to transition our brand onto Facebook and Twitter and YouTube and creating content for those platforms to drive traffic, of course, to the website. And so it was a great experience. I worked there for 10 years, which is, pretty astounding. And then I got an amazing education there, learning how to create content. But after 10 years, it was becoming clear that, it was maybe time for me to start taking another step in a new direction, kind of thinking a lot about wanting to branch out and maybe try something new. But I didn't really know what that was. And so I was already doing a lot of active stuff, with my work at MaineToday.com. My sort of area of expertise was like going out and doing stuff and then writing about it. Lots of first person content. And so I would go to a trivia night at a local pub and write about it. Or I would go to the paint your own pottery class and write about it and take some photos or video and all that good stuff. But what I found myself being super drawn to with my friends was active stuff, right? Going out to a fun fitness class or one of my good friends, we have a penchant for sunset paddles and then maybe drinking a little wine on the beach after.
Oh, that sounds nice.
Oh,
to
yeah.
me.
That's our own, our nice little, evening, event that we like to do in the summers. But so that kind of stuff I was personally drawn to. I was trying to be more active, trying to get in better shape and training for, different activities. And so on evenings and weekends, I'd be doing that stuff. And so on my own personal Instagram and Facebook pages, I'd, post a photo like, I went to this, fun boot camp class that happens outdoors, and we got to use sledgehammers. It was a ton of fun. And then friends would respond and say, that looks cool. What day of the week is that? How much does it cost? Do you have to be really fit to go there? What do you wear? That was often a very popular question. So I thought, well, I already really know how to create online content. I'm used to, managing a website. I already have this skill set that's really easy to me and I really enjoy it. I love writing about the fun activities that I do. So I was like, well, I'll create a blog that basically rehashes all the stuff that I'm doing on evenings and weekends with my friends anyway. And the whole intent was just to create a repository for my friends of the stuff that we did on evenings and weekends, right? There was no big plan for it to be the thing that I did with my life. At the time, it was just a hobby, right? Like a side project, as they say. And so that's what it was for probably a year, maybe two. And it wasn't until, I left the Press Herald and I did some freelance work and was working at Maine Women Magazine, which was also a great gig doing that, and picking up, just lots of sort of side projects to cobble together, that it really started to mesh that maybe FitMaine could be my job, right? I was used to working with all these other really great established brands that were creating content and serving an audience in really interesting ways. And I saw how these products did that stuff and I really enjoyed working on them. But I thought FitMaine could also fill a gap, fill this gap of being a resource for people who live in Maine, who want to be active, who maybe aren't the in it to win it athletes, who are looking to win the Beach to Beacon or win the Peaks to Portland, but who might want to participate, who might want to still swim it and do it or try the cool fitness classes, do the, bungee fitness and trampolines and have fun. So that's when I basically decided that I needed to go whole hog and full time into FitMaine and work on growing that. And it started out part-time, of course, as it was growing. And then about a little over a year ago is when I finally said, we're pulling the cord, kind of cut off that safety net of all those, other more secure, contract gigs. Most of the work I was doing was part-time contract stuff. But even still, there was a safety in that, of course, right? And about a year and a half ago, cut those loose and went full force into FitMaine and making that my full-time gig.
Well, I admire you. I've watched you because I've known you now for probably about 6 or 7 years.
That's right.
Since we first hiked into the Maine huts and trails together.
That's right.
Yeah, I remember. I don't know. I think we were on snowshoes, and I think I fell flat on my face within the first quarter mile or something, and I was so embarrassed. But you just made it seem like no big deal.
Well, if it's any consolation, I don't remember you falling. Okay. But if it's another consolation, I fall all the time. I can't even tell you. It's just I've accepted it as a charming part of my personality.
Well, it happens when you do stuff, right? Sometimes you fall. And I guess the important thing is getting back up.
Exactly.
So, Shannon, do you have advice for brands or companies that are trying to build their brand and their reputation and their network on how to use content to promote themselves?
Sure. And, I think, the kind of work that you do and the stuff that you talk about already, I don't know that I'm going to say anything that's altogether that novel, except in my experience, it's just been best to be who you are. Be you. Be a person, right? Personality. Even the biggest brands, right, that struggle, I think, with, showing that there's humans behind the brand, that they're people trying to connect with other people, work really hard to do this, that we are a personality. And the accessibility of things like social media and great content allow us to show who we are. And, I think sometimes we get caught up with trying to meet the demands of an audience. Who does the audience want us to be? What are they looking for? And certainly that matters, and knowing who you're talking to and why and what their interests are, where their needs are. Of course, all that plays into you figuring out who you are in a business and what gaps you're filling. But I think when it comes down to content, what I have found works the best is just, I like puns and I crack jokes about tater tots. And even though I'm talking about like fitness stuff and being active, but like that's me. I like to be active and then like go have nachos after and stuff. And I'm just straight up about that, about being silly and goofy and loud. And yes, I'm still talking about this fun activity, but I'm doing it with enthusiasm because I have genuine enthusiasm for it. And all that gets infused in every piece of content that I write. I know that when I probably first started, particularly at Maine Today, as I was learning, there was probably more of me wanting to maybe have a more journalistic style, or maybe trying to mimic some of my colleagues who I really respected, who had a different personality and a different approach. But over time, it was like, oh, what works for me is being me, having the personality that I have. I'm lucky in the sense that I'm a one-person business right now. So my personality is the business's personality. As businesses grow, obviously that's harder to maintain because you have different personalities and you have to be more precise, I guess, about understanding who your brand is and how you talk about things. But I'm lucky that I can just be me, and that is the brand of Fit Maine, and it works for me, and so people get attracted to that, and then it just sort of like blossoms from there. Then people come to expect that kind of silliness and that fun, and I just continue with it. And so that's been a big part of establishing Fit Maine and the kind of content that I create, that it differentiates it from other brands that write about similar stuff.
Yeah. Well, I love the fact that you infuse energy and enthusiasm because we have that in common.
Yes, we do. I think that's why we connected when we first met, because we were both silly and loud and fun.
Yeah. And I love the idea that you came up with today in our pre-interview chat. Like, what was it if all the technology went down in the city of Portland?
Oh, yeah. That you and I, with our wonderfully loud voices, could alert the masses of any impending, like if a tidal wave was coming and we had to like shout from the rooftops. I think you and I could climb to the Portland Observatory. You face north, I'll face south, and we'll just start yelling. And we'll be better than any kind of emergency services, TV, radio, because people will just be like, what? Who is that? Is that Nancy?
Yeah. It's so funny because even in kindergarten, I would be sent out in the hallway because I would talk during class.
Really?
Oh, yeah. So it's so funny that now, that I am approaching my later years, I finally have found, it's okay to have this voice. It's all right. Like, I'm not going to get punished for it anymore.
Well, but that kind of, it's so funny you should say that, because I know we were just kind of joking about that because we're both loud people and we both have big energy, and we can startle people in quiet rooms. And when I try to whisper, it's not a whisper. So like if I'm ever trying to whisper to somebody, the whole room is still going to hear, because I'm like, don't tell anyone, but so I got to be careful with my whispering attempts. But even that is still circles back to the whole branding thing that we were kind of just talking about, is stop fight. If you're loud and high energy, like, why fight it, right? And I think lots of brands struggle with like trying to fit into something or be like their competitors or be like other people in their industry who they see doing something and being successful at it. And then you try to fit that mold. I mean, we do that as human beings all the time, right? You try to be this person because you want these people to like, look well upon you, or you're trying to get this job or whatever. And I think one of the best learnings in life, but certainly in branding and marketing, is figuring out, who are you really? Like, I should not try to be somebody who's quiet, because I'm not quiet. I'm going to be bad at being quiet. I'm going to be great at being loud and high energy. And people are really going to like that I'm loud and high energy. Some people won't. That's okay. Then those aren't my people. But you and I are both, perfect examples of like, embrace the loud. Just go for it.
That's right. And that is the hallmark of a strong brand, is you will attract the right people and you will repel the wrong people. So that is what I'm talking about when I'm talking about building your network, building your brand.
Totally.
And also, I had a conversation actually with Lee Goldberg from WCSH News Center, and it was about being authentic. And when he shows up in person, people always say, oh, Lee, you are exactly who I thought you'd be from TV. Because when he's on News Center Maine, he doesn't put on a persona that he isn't, So I believe that's the way you are too, is you are who you are, whether you're on a video or you're out ice climbing.
Right,
or
that's so
paddling
true.
Or drinking wine. Although I must say, when I drink wine, it all gets a little more amplified.
Oh, same here. Not shockingly.
Scary.
Same here. Yeah, I have people like I get to do some work with New Center Maine as well on 207, and I'll meet people in real life who will come up to me and they'll be like, "Oh, I've seen you on 207," and then I'll start chatting with them. I'm like, "Oh, really? Yeah, blah blah blah. We're doing this thing." And often, of course, I run into people at like outdoors events and stuff, and they'll be like, "Wow, you really are as high energy in real life as you are on that show." And I'm like, "Oh, yes. Like, there's nothing.
Yeah, right.
There's nothing about that's staged. Like that's
right.
just me." And some people, yes, I think are like, "Whoa, that's amazing." And other people are like, "Whoa,
Take a pill.
whoa." I'll take one step back, and you just, whew.
Yeah. So when you're measuring your success for Fit Maine, do you look at number of visits to your website or amount of engagement on your social? How do you measure your success?
I really like this question because it's changed over time. I think when I first started working online, page views was everything, right? And I know it still has value, especially with like, digital advertising and that kind of stuff. And certainly garnering eyes on content still really matters. But increasingly, for me personally, what I find is I pay attention to traffic, certainly page views, but more than that is like social media, traffic and that kind of stuff, seeing how many people watched your video, how many people clicked on things, impressions, and that kind of stuff. So I absolutely pay attention to that in terms of helping me guide myself in terms of what kinds of additional content I'm going to create. What kinds of stuff do people get interested in? If I'm writing about, great hikes in southern Maine, does that get a lot of traffic versus, boxing classes and that stuff? So it helps me guide what I'm writing about and what I'm spending energy kind of covering. But true success, really, when I think about the purpose of my business and the mission of my business to get people active, to get people to explore and appreciate like all Maine has to offer, indoors and out, to me, true success is harder to quantify in the sense that it's not statistical, it's not analytic reports that I can, access on the daily. It's more when somebody will like tag me in an Instagram post or on Facebook and they will have just done something. They've maybe taken a class or they went on a new adventure. They explored a new place. They tried, rock climbing or ice climbing or waterfall rappelling or goat yoga or alpaca yoga. And they've gone and done it. And then they say, went and did this thing, had such a good time. Thanks Fit Maine for recommending. And to me, that is the biggest success because to me, that is full circle why I exist. I exist to let people know what's out there and show them how fun it is, but also how accessible it is. And to say like, yes, you can go do this thing. And so when somebody actually does it, that full circle, not just like, oh, this looks like fun on my bucket list, that stuff's great too. But to see someone actually go and do something and then tag me in it and say, particularly when it's somebody I don't know, like if a friend goes and does something that's awesome, but even when it's a stranger and I get a tag that says, thanks for Fit Maine for, writing about this. We went and we had an awesome time. To me, that's the biggest win possible.
Well, I think that's also the sign of a really great media personality. And we were talking in our pre-interview chat about, what category you fit into. And I think you are a media personality and I think you're very relatable and you make people want to hang out with you, like, and do stuff with you and share that experience and that energy and enthusiasm.
Thank you. And I mean, that's truly kind of, is a testament to being who you are, and people can sense that, and people like being around people who are fun and being themselves. And that gives other people permission to also be fun and have fun and be themselves. But the work that I'm doing now is also, a nod to, I'm from the Midwest originally. And so I moved to Maine and I quickly made friends because people were kind and welcomed me and said, hey, we're going hiking on Saturday. Want to come? And I was like, hiking? What? Like, where I'm from, it's flat. We just walk into and out of the strip mall. Like that's that's what I'm accustomed to doing. Like what is hiking? Or we're going mountain biking. We have an extra bike. Do you want to come with us? And I was like, what? I haven't been on a bike in 20 years, but okay. And people welcomed me and made these activities fun. And even though I was scared because I hadn't moved like that in a long time, I wasn't outdoorsy in Illinois, and people welcomed me. And so to me, it's also like, yes, I'm just having fun doing things that I really enjoy. And so that's contagious. But another aspect is like, I'm returning a favor that was given to me. And that changed my life when I moved to Maine. And people were like, come, let's do fun things. Maine is amazing. Look at all the stuff that is accessible to us here. Let's do all of it. And I was like, yes, thank you for introducing me to this. Thanks for being welcoming and fun and making me have a great time, because now I'm in love, even more in love with this place that I live. But also I get to meet really fantastic people along the way. So really, I'm just passing on what was shared with me when I first got here, and hoping that just continues on.
Right. And there's so many benefits, obviously, of being outdoors and getting exercise. And, we talked about falling down, but having good balance,
Well, it's funny, the falling down thing has come up a lot in my life because I am genuinely very klutzy. So I tend to fall down and walk into walls and stuff on a pretty regular basis. But I have this philosophy about falling, particularly when you're falling during an activity that you're doing. If you are falling off a surfboard, if you're falling on ice skates, if you're falling when, trying to ice climb while wearing safety gear, of course, so you're not falling very far, just to be clear. I'm not talking about plummeting from a mountain or anything. But when you're slipping, when you are stumbling, when you are tipping off your mountain bike, right, or whatever, it's probably a sign that you are new to the activity. I'm learning to skate ski this winter. That first couple of times on skate skis was pretty hilarious to watch. I should have had somebody film it because it was just me constantly tipping over. But I kept reminding myself, I'm tipping over right now because I'm trying something that's completely new to me. I'm challenging myself mentally and physically.
Yeah, right.
And that's amazing. Because I think we get scared of that. We get scared of falling down and looking silly. We get scared that people are going to see us and be like, oh, she's terrible at skate skiing. Well, yeah. I could look at it as I'm a terrible skate skier, but one of the things I've gotten used to saying, instead of saying I'm terrible at skate skiing, well, no, I'm not. I'm new to it. I'm learning. You can't be terrible at something that you've never done before. You can't be terrible at something that you're new to. So instead of saying oh, I'm a terrible skier, I just started. Instead I say, I am really good at learning. I'm being so good at learning how to ski right now. I'm falling everywhere and I'm still going out there and trying some more. I'm going to be an awesome learner. Yeah. And I'm going to fall down, which is a sign that I'm learning, and it's amazing.
Well, I'm a pretty good alpine skier, but I have not done snowboarding yet. And I always say the only way that I'm going to learn to snowboard is if Seth Westcott personally will hold both my hands.
Yeah, hear that,
Seth? Yeah, just saying, Seth. I'm going to put it out there.
Right? I mean, I feel like this is something that we can actually make happen. Somebody has to know Seth.
I know him.
I was going to say, we all know it's small town Maine enough that if you don't know him personally, then
I know. Yeah,
what are we waiting for?
Yeah.
All I ask is that, can I please be present?
Sure.
I would like to be there also. I tried to learn to snowboard for a couple of winters and I nearly broke my coccyx because I was just on my butt the whole time. But it was fun and it definitely is a great sport. But I did look a mess those first couple of winters.
My mom broke her coccyx recently and it's not pretty in any way.
Gotta take care of it. Take care of your butt. Just be good. Be kind.
We're not going to go any farther in that. We were talking about that previously, but that's for the other podcast that we're going to start.
More news on that later.
Right. So how important, we've talked about the importance of building an audience. And of course, in content marketing, focusing intensely on your audience is vitally important. Just like Procter and Gamble, when they started soap operas in the 1940s and 50s, they started on radio and then TV, and they put out stories every day that drew a loyal and engaged audience. And then they'd say, hey, by the way, when you need to do your laundry, buy Tide. And those people were like putty in the hands of the Procter and Gamble people. So that is an example of how building an audience is not necessarily a new thing, but now with social media and everything on the web, we have so many more tools to engage our audience. And I feel like you've really done that.
Yeah, I think, well, in the soap opera story, that's marvelous because I just learned that today from you, which is so incredible. And I did not know where the term soap opera came from and that it was like a sales pitch basically, or like rounding up, getting your audience in one spot. And one of the things that I think is interesting between that example or that experience of we have a product, how can we create something to get our audience in one spot, right? Which was kind of their approach. And a lot of the work that I've been doing, certainly, Fit Maine has become a place where I've get my audience kind of gathers, or I've created an area where people can come and listen or find out about the stuff that I'm doing or writing about. But truly, a lot of like the branding stuff that I did in the beginning, I did the opposite. I figured out who my audience is and I went to where they were, So things like my audience, like at the beginning especially, I was just like, my audience is mostly Southern Maine. I was making that assumption at the beginning of just kind of that was most of the content I was talking about was in the Southern Maine area. And they're people who are active, right? So I'm going to go to events in Southern Maine where active people are. And those events were things like 5Ks and, like trail runs that ended at breweries. Those are my people.
Yeah, right.
So I would go to events, and I had printed a bunch of stickers that said Maine is my gym, and that said fitmaine.com on them.
Thank you.
You have one right now.
And I do cool shit in Maine.
Oh, that's a new tagline. So Maine is my gym has been my tagline for several years now. And last year I added I do cool shit in Maine as another kind of just secondary phrase because, well, I do and you do and we all do.
That's
and
right.
The people who follow Fit Maine or have active lifestyles, whether they follow me or not, like we do cool shit in Maine. That's what we're doing. Like we're trying to be active, but the activity isn't explicitly to exercise. It's not to burn calories, to like run fast, blah, blah, blah. Although certainly people have those goals. But for me, Fit Maine is all about having fun, having good memories, having something that you can like laugh about later. Be like, oh my God, remember that time? Or how beautiful was that? Or what a great memory, what a great experience. My life feels enhanced. We're not talking about pant size or calorie burn,
Right.
Not that can't also be people's goals, but that's not what I'm here to talk to people about. We get enough of that messaging, especially as women already, that I'm here to talk about like, let's have a good time. Let's just go do cool shit. And like, let that be the aim of our experience, not a, consumption or whatever goal. But for me, the getting to my audience, I didn't have the Procter & Gamble funds to like rally people
Right.
to my program at the beginning. So I went where they were rallying themselves. And I just kind of would look at calendars and be like, I think that would be an event for me. I think going to that festival or that outdoors festival or that event, I think that's where my people are going to be. So I'll show up to where they are and just one by one go up and I would say, I'm Shannon from fitmaine.com. I run this website about fun, active stuff to do in Maine. Can I take your picture? And I would take people's pictures. And then I would post photo galleries online and I would hand the stickers out and be like, this is the website I'm talking about. This is what website I'm talking about. And that hope that lots of those people would be like, oh, that sounds interesting to me. Oh, I want to see my photo. And that they would slowly kind of trickle in.
Very smart.
Yeah.
Very smart.
One of my little inexpensive branding strategies that I think did a great job, Yeah.
And then you'd ask them to share it with their people, right?
I wouldn't explicitly make that ask, no, but I would just say like, feel free to tag yourselves or whatever. People would automatically share because you're taking a picture of them at an experience that they're really proud of, right? Like if they're running that 10K or whatever, or participating in whatever event, they're doing the trek across Maine, the Try for a Cure, like all these
Peaks
really
to Portland, which I did also last
an
summer.
amazing event. Oh, that's one. Like we've talked about it before, I think, but like one of my favorite events in life.
I'm doing it again in July. Yeah.
Congratulations!
Thank you.
And to me, that event is a launch pad for me in terms of I remember hearing about the Peaks to Portland when I first moved to Maine. And I remember having the thought of like, wow, what an amazing event for people who are incredibly elite swimmers, right? And it wasn't until years later that somebody put the idea in my head of like, you could do that. And I was like, no way, way too hard. I could never. And then I did it. And then I did it again and again and again and realized like, of course I could do it. I didn't win it.
No, I didn't either.
I went at my own, easygoing pace, and I had a good time, and I like cracked jokes with my kayaker.
Oh yeah, I remember seeing the video. Of you.
Yeah. I made a fun experience of it.
Smelled the salt water.
Oh my gosh, yes, and I would like talk to the Coast Guard, and I'd like be chit chatting away, and just having a grand time of it. But to me, that was a perfect example of what later became Fit Maine and what I do. That was part of my experience of understanding that. We do this all the time in life, but certainly with physical stuff, right? Where we think oh, here's this event. Here's the, Trek Across Maine. Here's the Try for a Cure. Here's the Peaks to Portland. And you imagine these like super elite athletes that train year round, crossing the finish line and like getting, land speed records. And yeah, there are those people who participate in those events and who compete and take it very seriously. But the rest of us can also still do it and have an incredible experience. And that's who I'm talking to. And that's what we're talking about is it seems daunting and scary and you're going to talk yourself out of it 1,000,001 ways. I'm just going to ask you to maybe reconsider. And I'm going to try and show you this experience and show you how it is accessible to you, because it is. And I had to learn that for myself. I'm still learning that for myself. There's still experiences that I look at and I say like, oh, I really want to do that. I'd always wanted to hike Mount Washington in the winter. And I'm proud to say that I did it.
I know
in January.
it. I saw
but
the pictures.
Even the morning of that hike, and I had been hiking and training and I'm, active and all doing all this stuff. And we did it guided. So we knew we were in good hands with a friend from Maine Alpine Guiding. So like, that was awesome. But even that morning, I was like, am I going to do this? Are we going to have to turn around? Like, is the group going to have to turn around because I can't keep up?
Yeah.
Like, I still do it too. I'm a human and I put those barriers up, but we did it. We lucked out with a really amazing day as well. So,
yeah. Well, I think that's another role you play is as cheerleader, because I know I was going to be cross-country skiing this past weekend into the Gorman Chairback Lodge of the AMC huts. And I was messaging you saying, I'm nervous. Am I going to be able to do it? And, because I was going to have to ski 8.5 miles in and 8.5 miles out. And, I was afraid that, if I couldn't do it, what would I do? Because it's not as if you can just hitchhike or anything.
And what was my response to you? Do you remember when you were like, oh, can I do this? I'm not sure, blah, blah, blah. And what was my response to you?
Your response was, yes, you can do it. Yeah.
And I didn't just say that in a blind sort of like, yes, you can.
Yeah,
you can do it. Like kind of a generic. I said that because I know you and I knew you could totally do it. If I didn't think that, I would have said so. I would have said like, it's pretty daunting. I wouldn't have said you can't do it, but I would have been like, be aware, it's a really intense, blah, blah, blah. But I was like, of course you can do it. Like, of course you're completely
it's
capable.
mostly flat with a few hills, which it was.
Yeah.
Yeah, and of course, we had seen each other at Pineland where you were having your skate ski lesson and I was doing my practice.
I love that we were both there, like trying to grow our skiing abilities, right? Or like you're trying to just kind of like work on like feeling good and putting in those miles or whatever. Exactly. And then I'm like, can I learn how to not fall down every 3 steps on skis?
But what we're talking about as far as having fun and feeling good, I mean, there is no high. You can't get a high from alcohol or drugs or really anything else. There's no better high than like the way I felt on Saturday or Friday when I got into that lodge and I had made that huge commitment and accomplishment and I was with friends and it was beautiful. You just can't get that from other sources, basically.
I could not agree more. And I was just talking with a friend about this exact same concept of, doing stuff that scares us is inherently scary, right? And so we try to move around that stuff, or we shy away, or we procrastinate, we put things off, and we sit there and we're like, oh, one day I want to do this. And you wait for this perfect time when you're suddenly going to become miraculously like stronger, faster, better, whatever. When really my life philosophy has sort of shifted over time and just kind of like wanting to say like that thing scares me and I'm not 100% perfectly ready right now, but like I'm going to sign up and I'm going to make that commitment to do it, because if we just kind of like do our ho-hum like everyday thing and never really challenge ourselves, like sure we won't have that like, oh my God, I'm going to barf terrified experience. What in heaven's name have I signed up for? Why am I doing this? The first time I did the Peaks to Portland, I remember standing on the beach on Peaks Island before the race, and I was looking at my kayaker and I was like, what am I doing? Why am I here? What have I done? Who do I think I am to be here? Right? Like this is asinine. Like what? Take me home. Like how quickly can I shimmy out of this wetsuit and like sneak off to the bar because. For crying out loud.
Well, first of all, you don't shimmy out of wetsuit.
It's true. I would have just stayed in the wetsuit.
A lot of Crisco. I need the biggest vat. Crisco.
I need those like wetsuit strippers. They have the Try for a Cure that just like whip it off you. I would have to like hire a couple people. Can you just like shake me out of this really quick? No, knowing myself, I would just scamper off to the pub in the wetsuit, just like still wearing it. I would just be drinking a beer, sweating, on some patio.
Such a mental picture. There is the Peaks Island Inn, which does have a pretty
right. I love their patio. But I think
I'm snorting. I'm just picturing you like all the hundreds of swimmers would be there, and you'd be sitting at the bar at Peaks Island.
Acting all casual, like I'm supposed to be there. Like people are like, "Are you supposed to be swimming? Like, is there a swim today? I didn't know. No, this is just my summer ensemble." I like to prune up, but I think that the finish line of that, or like you said, the accomplishment when we challenge ourselves, the feeling we get after challenging and going through that, oh my gosh, I'm so scared, but I'm going to do it anyway and see what happens and hope for the best. And obviously do your due diligence in terms of being safe and making sure you're as prepared as possible. But go and do it anyway. And then that, like you said, that high you get afterwards, you can't get that if you don't challenge yourself.
Right.
So the trade-off is a huge win. And those are the days that you remember. You don't remember the day that you're like, well, today was the Try for Cure, but I didn't sign up. Or today was that long swim, but I didn't do it. Like it looked amazing. Like no, like it's crossing that finish line. With dirt on your face and seaweed in your teeth.
Right.
Or whatever.
Right. Well, we're going to take a quick break, but I just want to say that I actually have found that in my career and life, if I make those commitments and if once I put things in my calendar, I might be scared to death, but just the fact that I've said I'm going to do it, and the trek across Maine and Peaks to Portland are examples, but also speaking engagements or other big, hairy, audacious goals, making a commitment is the first and most important step.
I could not agree more. Put it in the calendar.
Yeah, right.
That's how to make it happen.
Exactly. And then okay, I've got 3 months to get ready. So if it's a choice,
and then you'll wait 2.5, and then you'll start getting ready.
So we're going to continue our scintillating conversation with Shannon Bryan shortly. But I wanted to share exciting news with you about how to connect with me about the podcast. We've created the PR Maven Nation podcast listener line, and you can now call 207-620-9075 and leave a message for me, share feedback or ideas for the podcast, including other guests, wonderful guests like Shannon you'd like to have on, or you'd like to hear on the show. And I look forward to hearing from you. We'll play your recording and then I'll respond, hopefully appropriately. But right now, we're going to take a quick break and be back with more in just a moment.
The Trek Across Maine is one of Maine's best traditions. For more than 35 years, thousands of bicyclists and volunteers have participated to raise funds for the American Lung Association. This year, the scenic route begins in Brunswick and takes riders through Freeport, Lewiston, Belgrade, and Waterville, with great views of the Kennebec River. The ride has 1, 2, and 3-day options, as well as many volunteer opportunities. So mark your calendars for the Trek Across Maine, Father's Day weekend, June 19th through the 21st. The registration deadline is May 20th, so don't miss out. Visit trekacrossmaine.org today. That's TREK acrossmaine.org.
So welcome back. And today we're talking with Shannon Bryan, founder of Fit Maine and the Fit Maine Social Club. And I want to dive right back in with more questions. And speaking of the Fit Maine Social Club.
It's enough.
Most successful people have a network of fans and followers, either online or in person or both. How have you built your network of fans and followers? And has it been a conscious goal or has it happened on its own?
Definitely a little bit of both, which is probably true for everybody. We talked already about, how when I was first going Fit Maine, I would show up to events where I thought my like-minded people would be, and I would tell them about Fit Maine. And that was when Fit Maine was, just a content repository or whatever, which makes it sound way more boring than it is. Right. It's way more fun than that. Yeah. But certainly when the Social Club, which launched last year as kind of like an addition to the work that I was already doing, on the one hand, with Fit Maine, I would write about stuff and encourage people to go try it. And then now with the Social Club, we go do things together, which is amazing. So I create events out of the stuff that I think is cool and fun and interesting and whatever. And so that experience too has been very much luckily I already had, Fit Maine and, had built up an audience there, people who were already kind of following. So it was kind of like a logical, transition for some people to say, when I said like, no, I have the social club, sign up, we're going to go do stuff together, where people were like really looking for that and really looking to make connections because they were new in Maine, or, the kids were, growing and out of college, and, they had more time on their hands to go do stuff that they wanted to do. And so a lot of that has been very just natural, thanks to the audience I'd already built, and I could like get them to follow me. But certainly there still is that aspect of wanting to create content that shows what the club is about and shows what we do and how we're silly and that kind of stuff that helps feed that cycle so more people can find us and see what we're about.
That's awesome. What activities have you done so far with the club?
Oh my gosh, we have done all of the things. So some of like the super cool stuff, we did waterfall rappelling in New Hampshire down a waterfall, obviously, and that was a ton of fun. And we went ice climbing not that long ago in Camden Hills State Park, which was very cool. But so we do everything from easygoing paddles, like out on a mellow, lake watching the sunset, to stuff that's significantly more challenging, like climbing Mount, Washington in the winter. We try to find like a really good range, but everything is always done with an air of we're in this to have fun and challenge ourselves at whatever level we are. So if you are putting on, we just a couple weekends ago went to the new the Oxbow beer garden in Oxford, and we went cross-country skiing on the trails and then went in for a beer and pizza, of course. But there were people there who had been cross-country skiing for years, and there were some people who were putting on cross-country skis for the very first time. So it's a wide range, but I definitely like doing stuff that's fun and gonna make for great memories.
Right. And so people get to meet you and meet each other.
Really, and it becomes, it might start about like, Shannon looks like fun, I'm going to go because she looks entertaining, but it very quickly becomes very much about everybody else in the group. And the social club has attracted lots of really fantastic people who then become the welcoming committee, and friendships are forming, and people are going off and finding, oh, you and I like hiking at the same pace. Like next Saturday, let's go do this other hike together. And friendships are forming, bonds are being hatched, and that to me is incredible to watch.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. Now, is there a resource such as a book, an app, or a website that you have found helpful in your line of work?
I thought a lot about this question actually, because I've got friends who very much ascribe to like, this person's, podcast, where they learn a ton, and, certainly podcasts like this one that help give people like good information. And I find I'm very much a dabbler. I'm a dabbler in all of my fitness activities, and I'm a dabbler in my consumption of like where I learn, because I find everything and everywhere has value, especially at the right time. Like I'll have people give me books, like what is the Jen Cicero book? You Are a Badass at Making Money.
Oh, right.
And You Are a Badass. And I remember I had a friend give me those a couple years ago, and I was like, I'm not, whatever. I'm really busy. I don't have time. And then this fall, all of a sudden I just like sat down and I read one of them like from beginning to end. And like I needed to hear that information right at that moment. But I certainly listen to podcasts, and I listen to, and utilize resources or whatever that we have here in Portland. But also I have a couple of friends who like work in marketing and work in communications and stuff and sponsorships. And I turn to them all of the time, mostly to bounce ideas off of, because as an independent, business owner, I'll have an idea that I think is great, and then I'll kind of need to turn to somebody and say, is this a good idea? Is this silly? Like whatever, or is this right packaging and stuff, whatever. So I'm an all around consumer, but I also very much look towards like people who I know locally who work in these industries, who like I trust to give me good feedback. And I rely on them heavily for emotional support too.
That's what friends are for.
Yeah.
So is there a parting thought you'd like to share with PR Maven Nation today?
So many things. But I guess my biggest one would be we talked about being real with who you are and being a human being, and letting your personality shine, and all of that good stuff. But for me too, I remember when I was first doing Fit Maine stuff. This was like a good learning I had, where I was writing about yoga one-on-one. yoga 101 classes. There was like a bunch of people, a bunch of studios doing intro to yoga classes. And I was like, I'm going to round these up and encourage people to like try a yoga class if they've been thinking about it. And so I found this photo. Most of the photos I use on my website now are mine that I've taken. But at the time I was like, I need a good yoga photo. So I found a stock art photo that was this woman in crow position, which for those who know yoga know what that is. For those who don't, it's a very, I think, challenging balance position where you're just on the palms of your hands with your body weight over your hands. And very challenging. And it looks challenging. And I posted that photo and I put words on it that said like, yeah, not so much or something like that. Try a yoga 101 class or something to that effect. And very quickly, somebody commented and was like, oh my God, I could never do that pose. Like, I can't do yoga. And I was like, no. Like I was making a joke about that being a funny pose, but no, you like whatever. And I say all this to say that like I was using the wrong imagery for my message and I was trying to be funny and I thought I was being cute and it fell flat. And it was a good example to me of if you are trying to be accessible to beginners and then you need to show photos of beginners. And if you are trying to like get a certain audience of people, you really need to use the language of those people. And I've seen studios and stuff or other brands where they're like, oh, it's a, intro thing. And then they use all this jargon that a beginner person wouldn't understand what that stuff meant, or it sounds very daunting. And so I try to every day be clear about who I'm talking to and what we're talking about. And when I go somewhere, I take pictures of everyone who's really there, not just the super ripped 20-something, right? Those people can be on all the photographs too. That's great. But like also all the other people who are there who don't fit that particular description because this class is open to everyone. This mountain is open to everyone. This ski trail is open to everyone. And I want my brand to showcase that because I want all those people to feel welcome and I want them to know that they're out there and I want them to see themselves. And that has become part and parcel with FitMain and my brand because I've made that concerted effort to be aware of who I'm talking to and making sure those people see themselves in the content I create, the language I use, and the pictures that I share.
Love that. Love that. The message of accessibility.
Yeah, absolutely.
Regardless of your experience or your body size or your fitness level.
Yeah, I mean,
good for
stock
you.
art is great if that's what you need to use at any time. But if you can be real about it and really feel like, I mean, I know the word authentic gets thrown around a lot, but it's true. Like if you can show that you're a real person and this is what you're really about and talk to the people you're talking to in a way that's genuine, well, that's worth all the money in the world.
I agree. Absolutely. So if people want to get in touch with you, Shannon, what's the best way?
Sure. You can always email me, of course, at shannon@fitmain.com, or you can track me down on Instagram or Facebook, either personally or at FitMain on both of those platforms.
All right. Well, thank you. This has been so much fun.
It's been such a pleasure chatting and laughing with you.
Yes, it has. And I can't wait to do an adventure with you.
Yes. We'll have to start plotting immediately.
Thanks, Shannon, and have a great week, PR Maven Nation. That's it for this week's episode. I'd like to thank you for listening, and if you feel that you've gotten value out of today's conversation, consider leaving a 5-star review on iTunes or whatever app you're using to tune in. If you haven't subscribed yet, you should do so. I release a new episode each week, and subscribing will make sure you get an alert when there's a new episode. You can also join the PR Maven Nation by going to prmaven.com/nation and clicking join. It's free and it's a great community of like-minded individuals who are all looking to learn and grow from one another. If you have an Alexa-enabled device, be sure to add the PR Maven Marketing Minute to your daily flash briefing menu. Thanks again for listening and have a great rest of your week, PR Maven Nation.